Good afternoon and welcome to Friday's Celtic State of Mind. I'm Chris McElwain and I'm hosting today in place of Paul John Dykes. And I'm delighted to be joined on a Friday. I'm sure everybody else will be delighted as well by the Oracle, Jim Orr, Esquire, as it might be. But it's the Jim. It's the morning after the night before, and we're not talking about being out on the booze. We're talking about a bit of a gut punch of a European game. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about and get your thoughts on the first two games that we've seen under the new manager, brother Wilfried Nancy, and or Nancy, depending on your pronunciation. Celtic seem to believe it's Nancy. A lot of people, including those the linguists among us, seem to say it's Nancy, but we'll go with Wilfried Nancy. Don't crucify us over that. And we've got a huge game coming up, Jim, with the cup final at the weekend, and I think. One of the things we will want to touch on is that game is not even just about a trophy now. I think it's possibly taking on even more meaning given the start that the new manager's had. But let's break it down. Let's try and be as factual as we possibly can. For the guys in the comments, as you probably noticed, I am using a slightly different setup to usual. It's a new setup I'm trying, so it has been tested. Hopefully the sound's okay. If anyone's got any issues, then please let me know in the comments. I can make some adjustments, but hopefully we'll be fine. Anyway, Jim, last night I believe you were at the game. Do you want to give your impressions of the match? How did it play out for you, and what was most concerning about last night's performance?
First thing I have to say, I've got a loose tooth, so I'm hiding behind the microphone here, and I'm not sitting in a dentist chair like the other person is. We hammered the Midtjylland a few weeks ago. Last night we were playing against a top team from Serie A. They're in contention. They're a Champions League club playing in the Europa League. Technically superb team. They can play 10 yards passes with their eyes shut. I mean, we can't play 10-yard passes with our eyes open. Instant control of the ball. The ball bounces off our guys. They attack with speed and purpose, and we're pretty ponderous. So, it was what it was last night. I think no matter who the manager was, no matter what the system was last night, I'm going to take this out, sorry. I'm now hiding behind here. No matter who the manager was, no matter what the system was, we'd have lost last night. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over last night. I think the reaction to the new manager has been way over the top. We get into that in a bit more detail. We can still qualify for the Europa League, but that's the standard of the top teams, and we're quite a wee bit away from that. So, as I say, I wouldn't lose too much sleep over last night. It was what it was. I think they've got bigger issues to contend with rather than last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I mean, a lot of the comments that I've read, and I had to watch the game afterwards. My wife's not been too well, so I wasn't able to watch the game live, but one of a lot of the observations that came through social media, came through the comments after the Acsom bulletin, etc., were around the first half in particular. You know, how brutal the first half was, inability to kind of settle into any shape, maybe not doing a lot of the fundamentals. Even the manager spoke about after the game. He said, in his interview, he said they were too soft in the first half, but he saw some positives during the second half. Is that the way you saw it as well, Jim? Did you see any positives in the second half that you could put your finger on? I know nobody will say it was 0-0, in the second 45. I hate that. I think, ultimately, game's 90 minutes. If you lose it in the first 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. You still lose the game. But was there anything you could point to in that second half to say that the manager addressed some of the concerns and tightened it up? What was your impression?
I think we give teams a goal of a start at that quality, then you're asking for trouble. We scored an own goal after 5 minutes, so that's not good, and that just makes it a bit easier for them. And you're expecting them to have most of the ball, and it's the opposite from what we're used to. So you just have to keep disciplined. And I thought, if we got to half time 2-0 down, you thought, you never know, we might do something in the second half. The third goal, I thought, was a killer. Then we got the chance for the penalty, and pretty much as you expected, we missed the penalty. They took the foot off the gas in the second half. It's early days for the manager. He's having to see what the players can do. He made a few substitutions at half time. Ian Acsom, I thought, was pretty good up front. He held the ball up well. I thought Donovan did. Donovan did well. Wilson did okay. I just thought the reaction last night was a bit over the top, as well as the reaction to the manager was a bit over the top. Putting a great team, far better than us. We did what we could do. I mean, people are talking about lack of effort or whatever. But when you're putting against a team that's so much better than you, it's hard. It's like Livingston come to Park here. They give you a chance here to understand what it must be like for Livingston players chasing shadows. And if you make a mistake, they'll pounce on you.
Yep.
I think Negan got slaughtered last night because it wasn't one of his best games, but his first pass was short, howls of derision. His second pass is short, howls of derision. Doesn't help the players when you're on their backs. You know, this whole kind of best fans in the world. Are we really? I mean, this is the time we need to support the team. You know, faithful through and through. We don't care if we win, lose or draw, just as long as we don't lose or draw. You know, so that's, you know, we need to get behind the team because it's dead easy to support a team who wins. Dead easy. And it's dead easy to play well in a team who are playing well. But when you're not playing in a team that's playing well, you have to dig in. Too many moaners last night. Schmeichel was moaning all the time. He's kicking the ball at the park and pointing at players as if it's their fault. Negrin, as I said, after 2 bad passes, his confidence was a bit short after that. So it's difficult. 60,000 people watching, shouting and bawling. I think a fair percentage of the people there last night maybe weren't regular attenders at the game. Certainly loads of people round about me, one of the guys who are usually at the game. So maybe it's a different kind of fan last night. Thinking we can go to Toby Roma, but we can't go to Toby Roma. So, you know, I mean, if I'd have been at home watching the game, that was a kind of 3 coucher last night. I'd have been hiding behind 3 couches. But I was there and there was no couches at all. So I just, as I said, I'm not that fussed about last night. I think there's like a bigger issue here. I mean, we have to be kind of balanced. I think what's happened is, I said a few months ago, I thought the whole club was a bit dysfunctional, from the boardroom to the manager to the players. And what we've now found, I think, that the support are now divided into 2 with regards to the new manager. There's the one camp that are saying he's rubbish, get rid of him, and there's one camp that's saying, for goodness sake, give the guy a chance. And I'm in that camp. For goodness sake, give the guy a chance. We've only had 2 games. Ange lost 3 of his first 6 games, one of which was to Livingston. Definitely if we'd have lost to, you know, St Johnstone and Livingston, but they were too tough. Jock Stein, first 5 games, 1-1, lost 2, drew 2. A few weeks later, lost 6-2 to Falkirk. I mean, Jock Stein have survived with social media, you know, and then wins the cup the week after that Falkirk game, and the rest is history. So hopefully that's an omen for Sunday, and we win the cup and we can move things forward. But I think we need to calm down a wee bit. I think emotions are high, and they've been high all season. And what we're watching on the park are players that are literally doing their very, very best, but they're just not quite there. I mean, the previous manager called them Honda Civics, which was a bit disrespectful, but you get what he's coming from, that they're not the quality that he wanted. And that's been the story of the season. And as you know, fan media have been banned, and I was fortunate enough to actually, you know, go to Lennoxtown earlier in the season before we get knocked out of the Champions League. And,
that's right, yep.
And put the point to Brendan that, Brendan, you said that we don't want to manufacture our own, what did we say? Manufacture our own, for that.
Manufacture our own demise, is that?
No, it was whatever it was, bad stuff. I can't remember. This teeth is distracting me. And that's what we've done all season. We've sort of we've manufactured our own whatever that phrase was, and we continue to do so. And you know, that lack of quality of players, that's showing now, and we've got kind of not a great injury record, so that's kind of making things more difficult. So stress, manufacture our own stress. This just came to me there.
Manufacture our own stress. I was thinking architects of our own downfall, which probably applies as well.
Same idea. And we've been doing that, I think, we did that right at the start of the season. And what we're witnessing now is the outcome of that. And the managers has now left. And said was on last week, I have the utmost respect for Martin O'Neill. I think we're all a bit wary of he might damage his legacy. I don't think he did. I think he enhanced his legacy. But I think the performances were pretty bang average. But he got his points on the board, which is the most important thing. And I think that if I was Wilfried, I won't bother the second name, I think if I was Wilfried, I'd be watching, I had a look at the last 3 or 4 games and thought, you know what, we've been pretty jammy to come out those games. We get outplayed by St Mirren, won the goal at the end to kind of steal it. With about 20 minutes at Easter Road after we scored the goals that we looked pretty good, but we were bang average. And Schmeichel has to make a save in the last few minutes to keep the points. And Dundee were all screaming for the final whistle against the second worst team in the league. So, although we put the points on the board, the performances weren't great. And if I was a new guy coming, I'd say, well, how can I change this? Because if we keep playing like this, eventually we're going to lose points.
Yes.
Playing against top of the table Hearts, then that's the best team we've played. So chances are that might be a difficult game. And I mean, unless I was at a different game last week, I kind of, over the years when you go to see Celtic at Celtic Park, you're thinking, why are we playing with one striker? Play with two strikers, be more offensive. And I think he's looked at that and thought, well, you know what? Do we need 4 defenders? Take a defender out. Put another offensive midfield player in there. And he's taken Martin O'Neill's midfield. He's taken Callum McGregor, Arnie Engels, Rio Hatate, and stuck a Negrin alongside him, who's a top scorer. You think, well, that's quite good. That's quite offensive. He wants to play with width. He's taken our only 2 fit wingers, Yang and Tanetki, and he's put Maeda up top through the middle, who's Ian Atchell's still coming back from injury. And obviously it's a different Maeda. He's a shadow of himself. Whose fault's that? That's our fault for saying to the guy that he can go, and he's emptied his locker, and we've done the same with Yang. So these are players who are not 100% focused. But in terms of the team selection last week, I thought it's all right. He's playing Negrin behind Yang. He's playing Hatate behind Tanetki. He's got McGregor and Engels in the middle. First 20 minutes of last week, thought we played some good stuff. We've got 2. Usually games are decided by moments in games. Yeah. And Maeda, 2 one-on-ones with the goalkeeper. Is that the manager's fault? You missed him? No, it's not the manager's fault. How can you blame him?
Yeah.
Last year's Maeda scores both those goals, both those chances. This is Maeda, shadow of himself, makes a mess of them. Then the other big moment in the first half is, Hearts were rubbish. It's not like dominated the game. Should have won the game quite convincingly. And then a couple of minutes before half time. I used to coach kids football for the guts of 20 years. And any kid who's playing their first game with a referee, you say to them 2 things. Don't argue with the referee. He'll never change his mind. Play at the whistle. Play at the whistle. Yeah. Even if you think even if you think you've got a foul against you, play at the whistle. And we have, and I think he's been our best player in the last 10 years, the most consistent player. Brilliant. Love the guy. But there's our captain standing on the penalty spot with his hand in there, stationary, when the game's getting played. If I was the manager, I'd be tearing strips off him for that. And then when he realises, hold on, the game's still going on here, and I'm standing beside this guy, I better tackle him. Too late. He scored. Is that the manager's fault? No. That's shocking. Absolutely shocking. And then we come out the second half. First 5-10 minutes were okay. They get a corner. 3 unmarked Hearts players at the back post. Is that the manager's fault? These are... all the stuff about the system. The system. It's not as if we're asking them to perform open heart surgery. Yeah.
Exactly.
4-3-3 to 3-4-3. You're professional football players. Figure it out. It's not difficult.
Yeah, you're not taking.
And I think, on you go, son, Chris.
I was going to say, you're not taking professional footballers out of a football pitch and putting them into synchronised swimming. They're on a football pitch. It's where they've played their trade. So yeah, I'd agree with you.
And if you give players an excuse, they'll take it. Oh, the system this and the system that. They'll take those excuses. So I thought, in terms of last Sunday, we should have won the game. We take the chances that we had. Fine. We don't make the basic mistakes. And in the case of Callum McGregor, shocking for a player of his standard to do that. Yep. So I think we were we manufactured our own stress. We were architects of our own downfall. We want to call it last week, and it wasn't out the manager. And at least he tried in the last 20 minutes to change things, and he was lampooned for it with his tactics board. But if you buy idiotic papers, then you read idiotic things. And I don't have any issue with the fans of the team across the city winding us up, because we will get it out and you have to take it. That's a bit of football banter. But when their own fans start to kind of putting things on social media, making our manager look a bit silly, I think that's too far. The guy's in there and he's doing his best, and we've all got different opinions as to who the manager should have been or when he should have come in and all that kind of stuff. And I said last time I was on, I'd have changed the structure. I'd have brought Angie in as the director of football with Muscat. But hey ho, he's the manager of Celtic Football Club, and you have to get behind the manager of Celtic Football Club. You have to get behind all the players, because they are doing their best, and it might not be good enough, but they are doing their best, and they're representing Celtic Football Club at the end of the day. And hopefully we can turn this round. But I just see too much negativity, and I'm not trying to be a happy clapper, as that phrase goes, but we've only played 2 games. And as they say, as Alan Morrison would say, if it's a player, he's 900 minutes, 10 games, you give a guy 10 games, at least 10 games, and then we see where we are after 10 games. As I said, the 2 games we've lost were, let's call them, losable games. So I don't have a big issue at this point in time. Losing the game on Sunday will heap far more pressure on them, but rather than trying to overthink things, I think if we're going to overthink things, try and overthink things in a positive way. We know Sunday will be hard because basically we play St Mirren twice, and it's an 87th minute goal and a 95th minute goal it's taken to beat St Mirren. So there are no mugs at the end of the day. And if we lose on Sunday, then I'm not saying it's unexpected, but on the balance of this season so far, we found it difficult against them, irrespective of the manager. And the game at the game at St Mirren, we were possibly the worst performance of the season.
Right.
And bizarre substitutions, puts Engels to right back, then takes Engels off and put Donovan. And there's a whole lot of kind of stuff happening in that game. So we need a bit of coherency. I think if that's a word, coherency. I think we need to. We'll go with that one. We need to be more coherent in terms of what we're doing. The guy's just in the door. He's trying to understand who the players are. He's only just met half the players. So I think we need to cut him a bit of slack at the end of the day.
So, Jim, on that then, because I think there's a lot of good points made in there, and some of them I want to kind of elaborate on a little bit. So we talk about, obviously the manager's only just came in. He's not had a great deal of time to work with the players. He's obviously got a system in mind. He's got a style of play that he wants to have. But as we head into, our first opportunity to get silverware this season, big game coming up on Sunday, where do you think the manager's priority should be at the moment? Because his first action seemed to be, right, I want to put a new shape in. I want to get these guys playing in a shape that I'm used to working with, and I know what I can get from that. Now, that's not taking into account whether or not the personnel at his disposal can actually handle that. But now he's been in charge for 2 matches. One against the top of the table, one against a top European team, as you've said. And I think we need to keep that in context, right? It was Roma, it wasn't St Johnstone we were playing, right? So I think we need to keep that in mind. But do you think now one of the things a manager should be prioritising, maybe over shape or maybe over our system, he should maybe start to prioritise standards and maybe even confidence? And I don't want to go back to Martin O'Neill. I know that annoys people when we talk about what Martin brought to the table in his short term there. But at the same time, when I'm looking at those players, I'm thinking, okay, they're not incapable, but they look bereft of confidence at the moment. And coming off the back of 2 defeats as we go into a cup final, do you think that's where the manager can really do his work now, is to get the confidence back up?
I think he's still finding. Obviously, he's only been here 8 days. 8 days, and he's still finding out who he can depend on. And I mean, last night, second half, he's now realised I've got a centre forward in Ian Atchell, a guy who can hold the ball up and a guy who can take chances, albeit his goals ruled out for offside, but he should have scored one before that. But he looks like a centre forward. Maida doesn't look like a centre forward, so he can play him at centre forward on Sunday. Tick. He can push Maida to the wide, big spaces of Hampden Park. Maida should run riot there. Then luckily he would keep Yang on that right hand side. So I think that kind of picks itself. He's not going to deviate from his 3-4-3. I think that'd be an admission of failure if he was to do that.
Well, I was going to ask Jim on that point, because I think that's an important point. If, for example, he sticks with the same team, right, and he gets a result, that's great. That's, is that a kind of a degree of validation for him? But would you also say, just to put a kind of different slant on it, if given he's had 2 performances, 2 losses, and I think fair to say that the performances haven't been brilliant, if he was to make changes and actually go for a more pragmatic approach against St Mirren, right, in order to take this kind of results first approach in winning the cup, do you think he would lose credibility by doing that, or do you think actually that's more what we'd want to see from a manager who recognises when things aren't quite going the way he wants? So he's a little bit damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, right? I get that, but what would you rather he did? Would you rather we had a manager who's strong enough to stick to his convictions and keep pushing on, or would you rather see a manager who's prepared to change and adapt to the upcoming fixtures as more of a sign of strength? Where do you sit on that side of the fence?
I am sticking to your guns. Basically, if he came in and from the very first game, he's saying 3-4-3 is my formation. He's going to stick to that. I think what he wants to do is get better players within that formation. And the more games you play, you realise, well, who actually fits there and who can I depend on. And what was worrying last night was some of the players were moaning at each other. Schmeichel was moaning all the time last night. He was kicking the ball out of play and he started moaning at players. Negan moans quite a lot, I think. So I think, with every game you play, you realise, well, I maybe change this guy for that guy. Engels, for me, he doesn't do enough in games. He doesn't influence games much for me. At the end of the game, you think, what did Engels do? I'm not very sure. But he takes the penalties. Well, he missed one last night. So I'd start Bernardo over Engels. You've got Bernardo, who's the Portuguese under-21 captain, was the Portuguese under-21 captain. Portugal, in the last, 10, 15 years, one of the strongest nations in the world. You don't get into the Portuguese under-21 team unless you're a good team. You don't become their captain unless you're a good player. So he's been frozen out a wee bit this season, certainly. I thought he did okay last night. He came on. I'd play him.
Seemed to get some praise. Yeah, seemed to come out of it with some praise for his performance last night.
I'd play him.
One of the few.
I'd play him, certainly. Another thing, I mean, obviously football's all about opinions and people are perfectly entitled. But I thought Hatate was really good last night in a really difficult game. He took the ball in difficult situations. He played his passes. Harley gave the ball away. He was a creative part of the team. He was unlucky with the chance. He was a bit off balance when he came to shoot. And I love Hatate. Hatate's always in the team for me. Negan, as I said, I think the first two passes, his confidence was shot. After that, I think he's more of an impact player. I'll leave him out. I might play maybe some of Luke McCowan, something about a dig in him. And that's the only two changes I would make for Sunday, because there was a lot of the Hearts' performance was actually okay. Some of it was actually pretty good, but to use the old cliche, it's a results-driven business. And if we beat Hearts, then Wilfried's a genius. If he got a point last night, he's a genius. It's all down to, and it's that age-old thing. Why do you go and watch football? Is it to watch your team win, or is it to be entertained? And in an ideal world, you want both. But if you choose one, what's the one you choose? And the one you choose is always to win.
Absolutely.
Always to win. Because you're entertained for 90 minutes. But if you don't win the game, then you are hacked off the next week until the next game comes up. So winning masks a whole lot of things. And none more so than the last St Mirren game that we played, when we were dire. And that's the thing. If that ended up 0-0, Martin O'Neill would have got hounded. Would have got hounded for his substitutions and how he played and all this stuff. And that was why I was glad, as I said last week, he can get out of Dodge with his reputation enhanced, not just maintained, enhanced. And at some point, he was going to lose a game or draw a game. And my concern is, and the fans were really quick last night to get on the players back, really quick. And I don't get it personally. People want to give the players abuse and boo them. I think that whole thing is counterproductive. You want to do that, you wait to the end of the game and boo them off the park if you want. And that's just, that was an unacceptable performance, boo. But if you get Negan, who was really short of confidence, and he plays a slack pass, moans and groans and boos, it's totally counterproductive. You need to get behind the team. I know it's the second time I've now said this, but as I said, it's dead easy to support a good team. It's dead easy to support a successful team. And this gives you a wee inclination, particularly against a team like Roma, is what it's like for all the other teams and all the other fans. And that's why I greatly admire the Motherwell fans, the Dundee United fans who come and support their team. And that's why I was annoyed at when we played Livingston. There was a wee kind of social media post where Livingston fan says looking forward to the game tomorrow. And it was a pillar because that's, restricted view where they are. And then somebody, the Celtic supposed liaison officer, puts a picture of a car park with an empty space and said, looking forward to seeing you. That's not fit. That's not something a Celtic representative should do. Yeah. Mocking other fans of small clubs. Because those 100 fans, as they come to Livingston, they're the heart and soul of the game. That's what we need. Yeah. So, I think so. So they come and support their team through thick and thin. We need to do the best. We've been spoiled, obviously, with the success we've had. And it's that old word, entitled. I don't think it's entitled to want Celtic to be the very best Celtic can be. But I think when you're calling for the manager to be sacked after 2 games, I think that, to me, my opinion, smacks of entitlement, because you need to give up. So you sack him after 2 games. Who do you bring in? And who's going to be wanting that job if you get sacked? You sacked him after 2 games.
Well, that's a consideration as well. I mean, look, it's. I think, Jim, you make a ton of really great points. I'm keen to get some of the comments in as well. Quite a lot of people agreeing with you as well, but it is all about different opinions, and there's no requirement to agree with myself and Jim. And we'd never tell people how they should support, but what Jim's saying is a seasoned. As I said, seasoned there, Jim, a seasoned supporter.
Good save, good save, well done, young man.
So I'm used to. Yeah, I was pre-warned beforehand. So let's get a few of the comments and just see get the pulse of the chat, and then we can maybe react to that as well. So Paul Carty came in really nice and early this morning, 18 minutes past 10. This is what happens when Paul John's away, is he puts the stream up nice and early for us. But Paul comes in to say, when is enough enough? This is all on the board. Nancy, timing of appointment and quality of players. Tisdale is recommending. Atmosphere dreadful last night. Fan media blocked. Total shambles now. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in there, Jim, but it does talk about some of the chaos behind the scenes, and not just on the park. Joe Hamilton, one of the regulars, comes in to say, afternoon troops, afternoon to you too as well, Joe. I believe in Nancy, but not in several of the players. We need some muscle in players with ball control. Yeah, a lot of people talking, Jim, about fundamentals, not seeing enough of the players stepping up and doing the fundamentals. And, the manager can do so much, but ultimately he's not the one that's misplacing 5 or 6 yard passes. And, I think it's important that, when we're assessing what's going wrong, it's not just us, the system's making the players do this. The players have got a responsibility to try and step up as well. And maybe also we talk about the fans' responsibility to try and gee the players on rather than knock them down when something like that happens. Mr. C comes in to say, spicy one today. Must be talking about you, Jim. Spicy one today. I expect it's glaringly obvious, easy for me to say, that they haven't grasped his ideas yet. The not knowing where you should be or where to find your teammate was quite stark. That won't change by Sunday. Well, we hope it will, Mr. C, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. Stephen Sloan, not seeing you on here for a while. Good to hear from you. Great singer, Stephen, by the way, if nobody said I'm singing. But Stephen comes in to say, was Lobel seriously sleeping during the game last night? I've seen the picture. I'm going to, just purely, play devil's advocate here. We've seen the picture of Tisdale. Looks as though he was asleep or meditating or whatever he was doing. I think there's now a tendency, let's try and capture the board members at any point we can. I'm not sure he was. For me, he just looked a little bit like we all look, which was a little bit disgruntled. So I'm not sure on that one, Stephen, but then would you be surprised, right? And I do want to touch on this, Jim. So Evan Ferguson, who played really well last night, I think showed his quality. He said the Celtic players didn't know what they were doing. He did actually mention that in his interview after the game, which I thought was quite stark. What I would say to contextualise that is he did that in between also talking about, they played well at times, but there were occasions where, some of our opponents didn't know, seemed to know where they were. And I think he was trying to do it in a very diplomatic way to say, well, it's a new manager, you've got to understand that can happen. But it's been picked up on by a lot of people that Evan Ferguson came out and said that. And I think, again, it's been used as a little bit of a stick to beat the manager. I mean, the optics, and as we've seen from some of the coverage of the games, the tactics boards, the trainers, all these things that are ridiculous that we would mock other clubs for doing, we seem to be getting caught up in, and sort of going after the manager, not necessarily just for what we're seeing on the park, but it's like, does that happen if he wins the 2 games? As you say, these are about moments. If Maeda takes the chances against Hearts, if we don't concede that early goal and we actually play like we did in the second half last night, none of this stuff is relevant, is it? All
the mocking stuff, you expect that from across the city. As I said, we'll dish it out and you have to accept it coming back. If you go into a shop and buy a newspaper, and let's call it, I don't know, the Idiot Gazette, and you start reading the Idiot Gazette, and it's full of stories about a tactics board and mocking someone. Well, that's in the Idiot Gazette. If you've actually bought the Idiot Gazette and you're reading it, and here's Paul Tisdale, he's sleeping, and all that guff, that's the Idiot Gazette. That sits over there. It's of no consequence at all. The tactics board was exactly the right thing to do. He's hardly met the players. He likely does know some of their names. He won't speak the language, right? Yang and Maeda, I can't imagine English is particularly good. Even the manager himself, his English is not great. It's one of the wettest games I've ever been to, in Sunday. We've got 20 minutes to go. We're trying to salvage the game. What is he meant to do? What's the alternative to that? Here's an iPad that's getting soaked. Here's a bit of paper that's getting soaked. Right? So I all that stuff is idiot gazette stuff for me. And I think what we have to recognise, in my opinion, again, I don't speak for anyone but me, is looking back, we should have done these things. And looking forward, we need to do these things. But we are who we are, sitting just now where we are with the players that we've got. And we have to deal with that. And the manager's only been here for, whatever it is, 8 days. He's just in the door. He's having to deal with players that we know are not good enough. And he's having to deal with a fan base that are, emotions are high because of all that stuff that's been happening off the field. Yep. We've just lost a manager. We've brought another temporary manager who's done it. He's away now. We've got a new guy in. Talk about the time. Wouldn't it maybe better to bring him in? Yeah, maybe it would have been, but just by the by, it's finished. He is in the door just now. And we need to back the manager. And then obviously, we get into January, they need to back him by bringing in players that's going to suit him and suit his system. And while we are just where we are just now, he has to, and I think he said it himself, he has to find solutions.
Yep.
So, as I said, if we'd have lost to St Johnstone, alarm bells would be ringing very, very loudly. We've lost to league leaders and we've lost to, an elite team. Let's call them that, in my opinion. Thought they were great to watch last night. And that's just where we are at this point in time. We need to get behind them. We need to support the team. And hopefully the fans are all up for it on Sunday.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Sunday then we'll get some more comments in. So I mentioned earlier on, the cup final's kind of taken on extra significance, right? Because it's obviously, we've not had a win yet under the manager with 2 losses. A loss that, if had we won it, it would have taken us top of the league, and I think things would have been a lot rosier. Europe, I don't think we had huge expectations until we beat Feyenoord. I think potentially if Martin O'Neill is still in charge for the Roma game, I don't know if he'd have been. We'd be felt quite as upset, but I think this is again a situation the manager's in. But when you look at the cup final, you look at the game on Sunday, Jim. Does it take on that extra significance? I mean, is it not just about getting the trophy? Is it also about the manager getting that opportunity for a bit of redemption or a bit of validation to say, actually, this is me. I've been in here for over a week now, and actually, I've managed to get the players to play up to the level I want. And what's your kind of thoughts on that? What does he have to do other than just win? What does he have to do at the weekend?
Just has to win. That's all. Yeah. If they win against Hearts, he's a great guy. He's lost, he's a bad guy. It's that simple for a lot of fans. It is that simple. Winning is good, losing is bad. That's it. There's no halfway house. You mentioned Feyenoord there, and I thought there was about a 20-25 minute spell against Feyenoord. I thought we look quite good here. Yeah. And then you think, Feyenoord lost last night to, what was her name again? It's the New Costa Bucharest. Because and I think what they're calling now USCB, something like that.
No, I think so.
SCB, something like that. And they're in the bottom few in the Europa League, as are Feyenoord. So maybe Feyenoord are not a particularly good team, but it was unexpected of winning away from home, which was getting. I'm not taking anything away from that, but maybe context that that maybe beating Feyenoord wasn't a kind of brilliant achievement. It's the fact we won away for the first time, and we'll take wins. All we have to do Sunday is win. Simply, last minute goal off somebody's backside doesn't matter. You win the game of football, and if you win games of football, that buys you a bit of time. That's what we Martin O'Neill coming in. Yeah. You win games, buys them time. Players get confident because of winning games, and the opposite applies as well. If you start losing some games, confidence goes, and that's where the leaders stand up. That's when your leaders come to the fore. And I've said, even before the manager left, which manager you're saying, the first manager of the season, before he left, I felt as if we had a lack of leaders in the team, and even more so now. And leaders step up in times of crisis, and that's something that we have to address come the January window. We need to get another couple of leaders in that team. And I looked upon Schmeichel as a leader, but last night his performance fell way below that as a leader, kicking the ball out of play and, as I said, shouting at players and whatever. We don't need that.
Yeah, and that's
sorry,
also
back to Sunday. Yeah, I mean, just win the game. At the end of the day, we've got better players than St Mirren, individually and collectively. I don't mean that's no disrespect to them, and we'll have 75% of the supporters in the stadium. It's a big pitch, which should suit us as well. So all things point to victory. But it's a cup tie, and anything can happen. But if he wins, if he wins, that's all we have to do. If he wins a bit of style, even better. And anything you will take a bit of time. And I kind of giggled, laughed there when you said that. Well, he's been here 8 days now, so that means 8 days. That's all he's been here.
Yeah,
you can't jump his back.
We have to keep saying that, right? It's not like he was hanging around in the back room. He's been here 8 days. And he's worked.
And also, sorry, but also the people were saying, well, maybe he should have came in and just kind of like sat in the background and observed. Martin
I
O'Neill.
did say that, to be fair. I've said that myself. Yep. I'll hold my hands up.
But people are saying that on the assumption that Martin O'Neill would have won the games. What if he'd have lost the games? Because basically, if we lose this league, it will be on Wilfried's head come end of May. So he comes in and takes a back seat and watches someone else drop points and thinking, I wouldn't have done that. I'd have played this. So that was never going to happen either. We needed a manager in as soon as possible. And again, if you want to blame the board, you can blame the board that we've been too slow in bringing the manager in. And the embarrassment of Martin O'Neill saying, this will be my last game. Oh, by the way, it's not my last game. I've just been told I'm going to be here again. That's an embarrassment, So we could spend the whole podcast talking about the board and how bad they are, but we've done that. We've done that to death. So they've made mistakes, and they're mainly to blame for where we are just now. And I recall, talking about the Kairat Almaty game, and I said, well, we're out here because they're all to blame. I mean, the board were to blame for not getting the players in time. The manager was to blame for the tactics, and the players were to blame because they weren't good enough. But look, it's the same players. The same players for the last two games are the players who couldn't beat Almaty back at the start of the season. They're the same players. So why surprised? Why are you blaming the manager for trying to do something that maybe, give them a better chance of winning games of football? So, as I said, I'm fairly relaxed about this. Another thing that I always try and do as well is if we aren't as good as we should be, if we've manufactured our own stress, if we have manufactured a title race, which it could be, but if it's a title race, I don't think it's between us and Hearts. I think it's between us and the friends across the city, basically. Then that'll be exciting. And I shall embrace the excitement of being in a title race because that'll, we aren't 20 points ahead. We have to try and dig things out, and that'll be exciting. Hopefully we get over the line at the end of the day. And I said this season and a half ago when it looked like that 3 each game at Ibrox when Clermont was kind of dancing around the pitch as if, well, they were in the box seat, we're in a title race. And how exciting was that we go over the line? We shouldn't have to do that, but that's where we are. We are where we are.
Is there a point, Jim, right, if let's say, for example, and let's not assume that it's going to be after this weekend, but let's say we don't win the cup at the weekend. At what point does the kind of faith that you've got, and I've got a lot of others have got the patience that we've got, maybe is a better phrase there, for the manager. At what point does it get to point of no return, do you think, looking at the perception of a lot of the supporters just now, looking at the reaction, will there come a point where you think actually really wanted to get behind this manager and his team and his ideas, but not necessarily all through his making? We've spoken about the recruitment, we've spoken about the fact we went into Europe really unprepared. We've spoken about the fact that domestically it's not necessarily been the way we'd wanted. Do you think he gets at least until January, no matter what happens?
He gets 10 games. Well, in my opinion, you have to give the guy 10 games.
In your opinion, yeah.
In my opinion, we give the guy 10 games. If he was to lose on Sunday, that becomes a much more difficult. But that's when we need the players to stand up and take a bit of accountability with this stuff. It's not all on the manager. As I said, the manager didn't miss 2 sitters against Hearts. The manager didn't stand like a statue on his own penalty spot with the game's raging on. That was the manager. We didn't play. We're not going to play teams of the level of Roma every single week. So we need to cut the guy a bit of slack. some fans have made their mind up, and that's fine. That's their opinion. But as I said, I also think the board are not going to bow to fan opinion. They ain't going to sack a manager after 2 games or 10 games. I think they will give the manager to the end of the season at least. They're going to double down on this, because what they've been very, very consistent in saying is that they're correct. It's the manager that's wrong. I mean, that flamethrower against Rodgers was, it's his fault. That do us. All the stuff against the fans, the anti-establishment fans, the new ban fan media, they're just doubling down. It's like, it's not our fault. And there's a bit of a kind of, maybe win-win's not the kind of phrase I'm looking for, but if Wilfried turns out to be good, we end up winning lots of trophies, and that's great. If he turns out to be a disaster, then that's on the board as well.
Yeah.
So it's one more thing to kind of flag up to you know what you're doing. But I'd rather not go down that road. I'd rather think that we'll win that game on Sunday, or and we'll go on a good run and we'll start winning some games, because even after last night, we can still qualify for Europa playoffs. So we've got a cup to win on Sunday. We win one more game in hand in the league, then we're joint top. We strengthen in January. I think we have to focus on the positives. I think if we, I saw a wee phrase the other day, that if you're going to overthink on a positive, we'd rather think about all the things that could go wrong. And that's the way I'm looking at this season. We've brought a guy in who seems to have a kind of decent track record, lots of ideas, and people are slaughtering him for a tactics board. Idiots Gazette. No, the Idiots Gazette.
That's fair enough. I'm going to bring in a few more comments here, Jim. So again, just to re-emphasise your point, Ian Boy comes in to say, Jim speaking personally, not speaking for majority of supporters. I mean, like that.
And how would he know that?
Well, exactly. I think, but the point where I think that does have merit is, like, people do need to understand that when I'm on, or Jim's on, or Paul John's on, or any of the guys in Acsom, we are speaking just our opinion, not our mandate.
And that's a typical keyboard warrior statement, right? At no point did I say I'm speaking for anyone, but this person comes on and says I'm not speaking for the majority of fans. Based on what?
Yeah.
Based on what?
It's opinions. We bring different contributors on different bases, so you get the diverse views. We don't have a mandate.
I've got no issue with that person coming on and say, I've got a different opinion. I think you should go. And that's fair enough. But you don't come on and say that definitively, I'm not speaking on behalf of the majority of fans, or I'm speaking on behalf of the majority. That's just a nonsense.
No.
Absolute nonsense. So, Idiots Gazette.
Yeah. So you see, I mean, honestly, if anyone was ever look at our group chat, I mean, we barely agree on anything half the time. It's
a group chat. A group chat has been quite. What's the word I'm looking for, Chris? Over the last 12 hours, heated. Yeah, because there are people in the group chat who've got quite different opinions on what's happening at the club and what happened last night and what's happened with the managers, and that's good. And as long as you do that in a civilized manner, that's fine, but you don't come out and make statements that you can't back up. It's opinions. If I like yellow and you like purple, you can't say to me, how can you like yellow because you should like purple? That's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And that last statement, again, I don't usually react to people who come on and the people who post. I don't look at the chat. But see that last statement, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Have a word with yourself.
Yep. See a few reactions to that, but no, the reason I brought it up, Jim, is just to emphasise that point, is that this is our opinions. It's purely our opinions. I'm going to get a few more comments up. Good to see Quinny in the chat as always. Bernardo was the best midfielder last night for me. I've seen that echoed in quite a few places. A lot of people saying that. Paul Leinster, I think that's just, hopefully I pronounced that right, Paul. This is ridiculous, as was Nancy's decision to stick with the same team and structures, one beaten by Hearts. He's clearly naive in the extreme. Can we call him naive, Paul? If he's again, as we've said, he's been in like a week. Is that naivety, or is it maybe just he's in that process of discovery? He's discovering what he can about the club. Not disagreeing with your point or agreeing, just saying that I think would be my counterpoint to that. Sarah Simpson comes in, working at the channel. I thought Negrum was the most obvious number 10 we have. How wrong I was. He cannot be a starter. I think Jim, you yourself mentioned Negrum's been a bit of an impact player. I think Martin O'Neill used him largely as an impact player as well. He obviously got off to quite a good start in his Celtic career. One of my observations when I've watched him is I think he looks like he lacks pace. He's not the most mobile player. I like his quick feet, but I don't think he's got the pace sometimes to do that transition from defence to attack, to pick up the ball from deep and carry it forward. But I think he's got a degree of invention which could, depending on how we play, if he was playing more advanced, might actually help to build the attack from a much higher up the pitch. But that's just my point of view. But he is someone that seemed to get a lot of criticism last night. I think, not just for his performance, but as you said, for some of his actions on the park as well.
I think he's a good player. I think he reminds me of Tom Rogic a wee bit. Tom Rogic, in terms of he tends to appear at the right time, and he was obviously can score goals. I think he's had some very good games. So that's the benchmark. That's what you have to play. If you, we know he's a good player. We know he can play, so you have to play at that level. And that's my point about players not playing to the level that they can play to. In terms of the naivety comment, his system is 3-4-3, and he will stand or fall by that system. And he's trying to get the best players he can into that system because he's got confidence in that system. That's why we brought the guy in. One assumes those are the chats that you have with potential managers that you're bringing in. What's your style of play? What do you want to do? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I think it would show weakness if you'd change the system. I don't think last night. I mean, people talked about last night being a free hit. It kind of was a free hit, given the level of team that we were playing against. My concern was, again, I'm just repeating myself again, how quickly fans were to get on the players' backs. I just think that's counterproductive. I think it doesn't help. We need to get behind the team. We need to get behind the players. They're representing us, the fans, and they might not be as good as we like them to be, but hey-ho, it's Celtic. You need to get behind them.
So makes sense. Yeah, you talked, Jim, just on that, and we're talking about the fan reaction and obviously the impact that can have during the game. I think you're right. Fans probably have the right to sound their frustration at the end of the game. If they want to protest, can do it at the start of the game. I agree with you. And I never think booing a player when he's playing is a good idea because it's never going to have a positive reaction. So personally, that's my view as well. But when you look at on the park, when things like that are happening, when the crowd reaction is maybe not the way it is, you spoke about leaders on the park. I mean, who are we looking at the moment? Not at January yet. So who are we looking at on the park? You mentioned Casper being a bit of a leader, but what about our captain, Callum McGregor? I mean, look at Kieran Tierney, for example. A tenured Celtic player. Okay, back for his second stint. Who are the guys that really should be trying to galvanise the rest of the team, in your opinion? And why are we not seeing that at the moment?
We've mentioned the three, and I think Callum McGregor was fine. He was fine last night. He was doing his usual game, played well. Tierney just looks a wee bit, I wouldn't say the shadow of what he looked before, but he just looks a bit tentative in what he's doing. He's 2.5 half time. Was that an injury? Was it? I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I haven't looked online to see what that's about. They are the three obvious leaders that we've got. I think we need a bit more than that. Trusty's still, it's only recently Trusty's been back in the team. I think Scales has played really well. I'm not sure he's a leader. The team, Engels is disappointing. Negrin, you just mentioned him there. Who else we got? I mean, Tanecki's the new Mikey Johnson. People are saying, his final product is poor. Yang and Maeda, they were told they could go. I don't care who you are and what business you are and what work you work for. If you've been told you can go and all of a sudden they bring you back and don't allow you to pursue the job you want to go to, that just messes with your head altogether. So, and why are we in this place? Well, you then go back to the transfer window and the board and everything that went with that and the managers. All this, we have manufactured our own stress, and here we are just now. And either we can moan about it, or we can try and get behind everyone and try and push us on to something. I choose to kind of, get behind what we're doing and push us on. Other people choose something different, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's their view, that's their opinion, and hey ho.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier, Jim. We talked about the board and the scrutiny they've come under, and we're not going to go into kind of board attack mode just now. But with the the scrutiny on the manager just now, with some of the media attacks on the manager, I think media facilitated attacks that we're seeing on the manager. would there be an opportunity for the board, and do you think the board should actually be coming out and trying to support the manager a little bit more here, even just sounding off to say, look, we don't appreciate attacks on our manager. We've signed him. He's very early in his tenure. We're behind him. We back him. Or is it too early to do that? Would that be a kind of death knell? Would that be the vote of confidence that you don't really want to hear at this point?
Yeah, Wilfried's a big boy. He can handle that himself. He said that you get people will kind of comment, people will talk about you, and that's all part of the game. I think what you don't want to do is be running to the press to say, please lay off the manager. You don't do that. And I think also, I don't like clubs running to the media or running to the SFA and complaining about things and being selective. Here's an incident in the game. We're going to concentrate on that when there was 5 incidents over there that we get away with them. So no, I think there should be people in his ear at the club. They should be talking to Peter Law. Should be talking to him and maybe marking his card about a few things. Michael Nicholson will just shrug his shoulders, so he's not going to talk to anyone. Maloney's still there. McManus is still there. About maybe some of the nuances about that. Why are the fans going mad? Why are they booing you? Why are they doing this? Why are they people are picking on your tactics and stuff like that? Because it's quite intense. We live in a very, the level of scrutiny the guy's under, he's never had that before. But that'll be the making of him. If he comes through that, that'll be the making of him. And if we go and win the league, he'll have the last laugh on this. And it's just that we're kind of, as I said, we are where we are. We can't look back. We can't look forward. We are where we are. And we've got a lot of tough games coming up. And we need to go into those games in the kind of best possible state that we possibly can be. And that's down to the manager, up to him. He's paid the big bucks to make those decisions. Hopefully he's been ably assisted by his coaching team there. Hopefully the players are all up for it. They're not starting to kind of get a bit disillusioned. You're hearing wee snippets of information that maybe some people are a bit disillusioned. You can't have that.
No.
You'll be behind them. We can't have that. We can't have disharmony. He has to, if there is any disharmony, he has to kind of firmly stamp on that and make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, bring up some. Oops, that's not the one I wanted actually. That just shows you how quick the comments come in. But Billy Fisher comes in to say Celtic will smash St Mirren and then onwards and upwards. I love the positivity, Billy. I certainly hope that that happens. Officer Feelgood 1888 says get Fozzie back. It's interesting that point. We keep talking about the manager's only just been in, Jim, but he's one of the first managers that's come in with his own backroom team. So it's not just him that's got a degree of unfamiliarity with the players. It's also his backroom team. Probably the guys who are in and around training. They're trying to discover, what the players are capable of, what their personalities are, how mentally strong they are, etc. Different situations. So it's not just that Wilfried's come in and said, I don't know him, so we'll try that and try that and try that and try that. You don't get a lot of time to try out your ideas because you're constantly under that scrutiny. But his support team is facing the same challenge, aren't they? They're coming in and trying to find their way in the club.
These guys have travelled halfway around the world into a completely different culture, different atmosphere, and they had 2 days training before the Hearts game, and you maybe went to training and looked at Tanecki, who might have been brilliant in training, and think, we need to play this guy. This guy's great. And then you get players who are like world class on the training ground, but once they go into the match situation, then it's different. And maybe Tanecki's one of those players. So maybe they're saying, well, he's been good in training. Let's play them from the start. And we don't know. Talk about Fozzie back. We don't know how much influence he had, or Sean Maloney had, or Martin O'Neill had. Martin O'Neill was a fantastic figurehead to that. I don't think Martin O'Neill was doing much of the coaching there. So was that Fozzie, or was that Maloney, or was that? We don't really know at the end of the day. But he's in there with his own team, and he has to stand or fall with his own team. And yep. He should be tapping into Martin O'Neill as well. I don't mean like how do I solve these problems, but just in terms of information and marking his card about certain things. We're going to Hampden, so what are the kind of nuances of playing at Hampden Park? So that's where you're hoping there's people in his ear telling wee bits and pieces. We're playing St Mirren. We've played them twice this season. What are the issues with St Mirren? How are they playing? Rather than him just watching the games, there's other nuances to this. So I just give a guy a chance, is all I'm saying. It's not John Lennon. All I'm saying is give Wilfried a chance.
Give Wilfried a chance. I like that. We're getting close to time, so what I'm going to do is bring up a few of the few of the comments here. Just to get I want to get as many of the diverse views about the manager, the performances, etc. as I can. As we did say, my Jim, in my opinion, it's just our opinion. That's what we try and do. We'll try and get as many opinions in as we can. So we'll go with 404 Chris. Comes up up there with one of the worst performances I've seen at Celtic Park in 26 years as a season ticket holder. I mean, that's
we don't play Roma every day.
Again, good context. I think it's not like we're that's not our week on week bread and butter type of match. But yeah, Paddy Lavery comes in and says, "I've just come out from behind the sofa. I might go back." That's probably because I'm hosting, Paddy, right? That's what you usually do. So Green Machine comes in. I quite like this comment. Only 2 games in, so Nancy's a chance to see all the fit players, and surely Bernardo must play on Sunday before Negrin was totally lost last night, along with a few others missing. And that's important as well. We've got real quality missing from this squad. I think this would Martin O'Neill suffered with us, Brendan Rodgers suffered with us. Jota, Carter Vickers, AJ. AJ, the player who welcomed Wilfried to the training ground. He's a player that could come back and could potentially really be an advocate for the manager's style of play because he knows him, right?
See, on that point, Chris, if we'd have played Hearts with Abada, Kyogo and Jota up front, would we have beat them? Chances are we would. And that shows the lack of quality that we have. And that shows, again, poor transfer window, poor recruitment, poor everything. That's where a lot of this stuff starts. We end up with the players that we end up with.
Absolutely. Yep, completely agree. There was a comment here I wanted to bring up because I see that he's just about to leave, and I thought I'd give him a wee shout out if I can find his comment on here, which is this is a new setup. There we go, and it's Patrick Joyce, who we haven't seen on the chat for a while. So Patrick, hi everyone. It's been a while. It's good to see you, and thanks for coming back to Acsom. Always good to have you. So appreciate that. A few more comments coming in. Let's see what we got. So. DJ of choice comes on to make a kind of simplistic but effective point to say O'Neill got results with this injury ravaged team.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Of course, that's what I said.
Absolutely true.
100%. But what we're saying is that the performances weren't great, and at some point, you will luck out against Dundee, the second worst team in the league. We were screaming for the final whistle, and we go over the line against St Mirren. We were dire. 5th minute injury time goal. So. I love Martin O'Neill, and Martin O'Neill has been brilliant. If we win the league, a lot of that's down to Martin O'Neill getting those points on the board, 100%. But the performances weren't very good, and they were just going to get poorer.
Yeah, absolutely. This comment comes up from the capitalist pig. I like that. I love that. Okay, I can't do the accent, but I love that. Trust in the football doctor, and I think the emojis tell their own story there. Now, look, on a more serious point, in relation to that, Jim, Nancy's come in. We've got him in ahead of the January window, so in one sense, you think, well, that's a good thing because, hopefully he'll get the chance to bring in some of his own, type of players. He, at the moment, he's not brought any players with him. He doesn't have players that he's used to working with. He's might find some within the current squad that he thinks, yep, I can get a tune out of these guys. These guys can fit into my system. But when you look at the team, Jim, at the moment, and not just over Nancy's first couple of games, but when you look at the team over the course of the season, where are we really lacking at the moment?
Offensively is where we're lacking. We're not showing enough goals, and we're not creating enough goals. And we couldn't get centre forward, and we've just, if I can say the word, pissed off Maeda and Yang. So they're playing at kind of half pace these days. Taneki, we thought looked really good in his first few games, but kind of flattered the seat a wee bit. We're just not getting enough. Offensively, that's what I said when I looked at last week. I thought, in actual fact, no bad. He's left a defender out and put our top scorer into the midfield that Martin O'Neill played. So that's not a bad idea. But I think Ian Atchell showed last night he's a centre forward. Whether he's the answer or not, I don't know. But he certainly plays it as a centre forward. We need somebody who can give us 20 goals a season. We sold Kyogo, we sold Ida. Again, you get back to that. What we've done. I think defensively we're all right. I think we're fine. We need to create more chances because you don't create chances, you don't score goals, you're going to drop points.
Absolutely. Guys, it's been a pleasure being on with all the comments, new setup. I'm loving being on with Jim. Makes it dead easy as a host having Jim on because I just say, Jim, what do you think? And off we go. And that's even minus a tooth, Jim. Hopefully you get that sorted and get back to your usual good looks, mate. That's what we want,
Cheers, Paul.
TV personality and all that. Listen, thank you very much. Now, we will be back. We will be covering the game at the weekend. Just a couple of things to remind you of. We do have Paul Elliott live in Glasgow on the 21st of December. Tickets are on sale. I think the tickets are getting sparse. Paul Elliott, big hero of mine. I think a few folks of a certain generation as well. We could certainly use his quality at the back at the moment, but it'll be really interesting to hear what he's got to say. So please join us on the 21st of December for that. It'd be interesting to get his take on the current team and current football as well. I will be covering a match at the weekend with Paul John Dykes, so hopefully we can get if not necessarily the performance that we're looking for just yet, at least we can maybe get the result and turn the tide a little bit. All that's left for me to say is, Jim Orr, thank you very, very much indeed. And Jim, actually, before I go, you've got any announcements in regards to the Do You Know Your History play that I think is...
Yeah, and If You Know History is on next year, starring the wonderful comedy genius Des McLean. So the ideal Christmas stocking filler. And If You Know History, all about the time when the last sack of the board era. And in fact, I'm on This Is Acsom tonight, so... bit overkill of me today. And Paul and I talk about that period, 1988 to 1994, with the aid of a whole lot of Not the Views. So tune in tonight, 6 o'clock, for This Is Acsom, when we go over the bad old days. They were the bad old days. So again, a bit of perspective. These aren't the bad old days. These are the good days. We've got a temporary glitch, which hopefully we'll fix come Sunday, starting Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And Officer Feelgood 1888 comes on and says, and Jim, stop speaking for us all, but he has got a very funny emoji next to it. So I think
that's fine. No, that's okay. That's fine.
Tongue in cheek on that one. All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been over 2,500 on a Friday stream. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And thank you again for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. And thank you, Jim Orr, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers, Chris.
Thank you.